Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to our Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning. We're going through some beautiful material on the laws of charity, and it's getting very interesting. So let's just jump in and see how the rabbi's doing. Shalom, Rabbi Schwartz. Always good to be with you. We're really starting to enjoy your material. We're going to turn the class over to you and let you take it away.
Thank you very much, Dan. Hello, everybody. And we're going to share screen here and go to the text. And we've started chapter 8, which is the second chapter that we're doing. Again, we're looking at Rambam, the repetition of the Torah, Mishnah Torah it's called, and he's got all the laws of all the Torah in this 14-book collection. We're doing one small section of it, which is starting at chapter 7 in Gifts to the Poor. There's all kinds of gifts to the poor. This is this charity, which is the generic or the general gift to the poor. And this chapter 8, the second one, and the first one he introduced, I'm just reminding you, he introduced the basic ideas and went into some of the details of the charity, how much you have to give, who's it's appropriate to give to, and who has to give, and so on. In this chapter, he opened up and started talking about vows, and a lot of the instructions in this chapter is going to come out of vows, not out of the midst of giving charity, but out of the details or the rules governing vows. Because he started out by saying that pledging to give to charity is making a vow, and so he has to incorporate or marry the two ideas. What I wanted to add to this as an introduction is that the reason, or at least this finding that we see now through this chapter of how important it is when you declare something with your mouth, you say something aloud. It confers a certain status on things, a certain status of holiness on coins or on money, and on obligations by your declarations. That is exactly consistent with the themes I developed in my book, which at the time we started was called This Selfish God, and now I call This God Makes Sense. That's going to be the new title when I publish it. And I point out there how God is a creator. The whole point is God creates, and he created us using only his mind, so to speak, because there was no other raw material. It all comes from him, so we are really like an avatar or a figment of God's imagination, but we are in his image in that we create too, just exactly the same way. We create with our mind, and the thing that we create most prolifically are relationships. And the way we create relationships and all the other stuff we create is by thinking, which gets its first form when we speak. That's we articulate our thoughts. That gives them a little crystal clarity. And so it's that very idea where we act like God in speaking, like the, yeah. So the Genesis, the Bereshit, the Torah starts off with God spoke this, and God spoke that, God said, let there be light, and so on. It's all saying that's just the act of creation that's the visibility of the mental act. So that's how we are we're becoming godlike in that, really, creating our own little world as a subconscious of God. And that's why it's so important. You got to be careful when you create, because you can destroy too easily. So that's why it's so significant, and we take such care with the words we say and how we say them and how we follow up on them. Yes, bli neder is, a neder is a vow. It's one of the main words of vow. There's another one, oath, a shvua, which is shvua. If you've heard of Beersheba, which is one of the cities in Israel, that's where Abraham made an oath with another guy. That word comes from the word for oath and for seven. So it's the seven creations. You make an oath is you're creating. So the connection with seven, the number seven, is connected with the thing. So with the idea of an oath, of bringing something into reality. So there's neder and shvua. So bli neder is without a promise, without a neder, without a vow, because I don't want to commit myself here. I'm just talking out loud, thinking out loud, and I don't mean it to take on a definite commitment. So people will say beli neder. But they have to know what they're saying, because it turns out like,
Yeah,
I
Rabbi,
promise, I promise you, believe that. It's like, so it comes out to be a self contradiction, because they're not thinking what the word actually means. So
I have found in my life often, or far too often, people try to get me to verbally commit to things,
uh-huh.
and then you're obliged to a degree to fulfill them, and it's like, ugh. I remember the first time I heard of the phrase "blinetter,"
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but if it doesn't come with the vow, I mean, what's the commitment, right? So,
So in order to be a little more serious, and it puts you in a spot. Puts you in a spot. I agree. But instead of saying something like that, you can make a contingent on something. You say, "I will definitely do that if the time allows." So now, if the time doesn't allow, you're off the hook. But you're serious. If the time allows, I will do it. Or if the money is available, or things like that, where you make a contingency that you're going to look after this, so people can trust you, but they understand that it's contingent on something happening beforehand. So that makes it more serious. And instead of weaseling out of it, say, you want a commitment, but I don't want to give you a commitment.
well, I have found, in this day and age, there's a lot of people that will weaponize your own words by that commitment. And, well, you said you'd do it, and they guilt trip you, but they try to
Okay,
get you to first verbally commit. But my point is that it's so connected to what you were just sharing about Hashem's creative ability, and how humanity has the similar potential. When we speak, you then become obliged to do, and so be
right.
very, very careful
So
what you
so
say.
it's serious. So and you can take the commitment. You can honor the commitment. Don't treat it lightly. You can say, okay, we'll do that, and then you do it, and you treat it like something. But you have to recognize you've got to realize the gravity of who you are and what you can accomplish, and well, how people can rely on you. So yeah, it's a serious thing. Okay, so we're going to start here on the Shulchan Aruch. It's going to be a review of what Rambam said. One who sets aside a seller, which is a coin, and says, "Now this is charity," and declares on another, and this makes the second charity. So he didn't say this coin is charity the second time. He just said, "And this," excuse me, but that's enough. So we allow people to infer or imply things, and it's considered a vow. So that's, you don't have to say it out. It's people hold cross your fingers behind your back when you say something, so you're not serious. We go the other way. That if you just intimated something, it's already considered serious, unless you explicitly say no. The Rama adds, but if you wish to declare on this seller and his lips uttered it on another, it is a mistake. It is nothing. So if something you misspeak, like a famous from Nixon era, you misspeak, and so you meant to do it on this, and we're like, you got maybe I'm going to give this bike. I meant to give this bike to charity, but I pointed to my Roadster. That's my favorite bike. So you don't have to worry about that. You didn't intend that. But where you did intend it, even though you didn't say the full amount, that counts. So my notes say the halacha requires that vows be uttered according to prescribed formulae before they're considered binding. There's a certain way of saying it. Certain of these formulae are just abbreviations of their full form and must also conform to a distinct pattern in order to be considered binding. M describes here the required pattern, meaning and this. It was oath. It was a certain phrase. We're going to go to the Talmud now, which gives us a little more background. Nedarim, this is actually dealing with vows. Neder, bli neder, this is the plural form, the darim of vows. And it's in 7a, so it's not surprising that we find information about it in that text. Are abbreviations binding in the case of charity or not, the Gemara asks. How does this arise? What comes up? Shall we say that one said, this is for charity, this coin is for charity, in the Gemara's time already, it became not a cell, but a zoo, or was a zuz. And this one too, and that is a complete declaration of charity. But, for example, if one said, and this, omitting the word to, what then did he mean? And this too is for charity, or, and this is for my personal expenditure. Could have gone either way. His statement's incomplete. Do we say, since this is likened to sacrifices, as is written, that which is gone out of thy lips thou shalt keep and perform, even a freewill offering according to as thou hast vowed unto the Lord thy God, which thou hast promised with thy mouth, which refers to charity. That was all a verse, and I don't have the source. Hence, just as abbreviations are valid for sacrifices, so with charity. Or do we say that? Or possibly the comparison is in respect of thou shalt not delay only. We did this yesterday, that there is a special instruction. One of the 613 instructions is not to delay the declaration of a sacrifice. That you said you're going to give a sacrifice, so you can't delay it, and you have three festivals to go by before you're in a violation of that. So, and we said that applies to charity too. So, do we only mean that part applies to charity, or do we also mean that you can say a short form and that'll apply? And so that was the Gemara, and Rambam says it does, you can use the short form. I'm sorry, up here. You can use the short form and it works. That was the Rambam. This is the Shulchan Aruch repeating it. Okay. Now we go on to paragraph 3. Someone who has vowed to give charity, but cannot remember for how much, should continue to give until he says, surely not so much that I intend. So he made a vow. He doesn't remember. People do this. They do a thing in church or in the synagogues, or I'm sure in the mosque too. Pledges, right? You don't remember. I do this all the time. I stopped saying how much. I just say I'll give something, and then I got to remember to give, because I don't want to violate the amount. So he's saying if you vow to give, you set an amount and you don't remember what it was, so you have to continue to give until you say I certainly didn't mean more than this. Shulchan Aruch basically says the same thing. I'll put it in small print. I'm going to skip it, but this Shulchan Aruch adds something. One who is in possession of funds regarding which he is unsure whether they belong to charity is obligated to give them over to charity. So you find you've got funds. Maybe you are the treasurer. You're working for it, or maybe it's possible you gave these over. You found them where you didn't expect them, or something, to give them to charity. The Ramah says, however, one who has made a dedication in terms that were unclear and then died, so there's no way to know his true intent, his heirs are considered entrenched. It means the money normally would go to them, and the sanctuary fund that wishes to extract from them must prove their claim. Until they do so, the property remains in the possession of the heirs. So this is a standard case. It comes up many times. Supposing there's some money is in dispute, and one guy is holding it, and the other guy is claiming, no, it belongs to me, but he hasn't got complete proof. Well, I don't know if it's yours, I'll give it to you, but I don't know that it's yours. You haven't been able to give me complete proof, so I don't have to give it to you until you can prove it. I hear that it might be yours. I can see why you say that, but you don't have proof, so I don't have to give it to you. So that's the rule here too, even though the other guy that's seeking it is charity, no, but I'm in possession, so I can keep it. That's one thing the Shulchan Aruch clarifies for us. Another thing is the community has no right to assess taxes or arnunas, that was a type of tax, on charity funds. So the Ramah adds, if someone finds a wallet full of money in his closet, and it is written on it charity, we rely on the writing and consider them funds of charity. Similarly, no, because they never would have written that off if it wasn't true. Similarly, if someone says to his sons that certain funds belong to charity and they appear to be serious, then his declaration is taken as a fact. But if it's now, how could it be otherwise? You might be surprised here. So it says, but if it appeared that his intent was to prevent them from spending the funds, he knows his kids. So this belongs to charity. Don't touch. He's trying to keep them a little more careful with their money, right? So, or to shield himself from a reputation of wealth, he didn't want people to think he's so wealthy. So that somebody found a whole bunch of money. He said, "No, that belongs to charity. It's not mine." So, if there's a possibility of that being the case, then his declaration is not taken seriously, because in other words, we don't know for sure. So the money's here in his possession. And there's a good chance that it wasn't meant to be charity. So then we cannot, and he's gone. So we cannot take it away from the heirs in this case. This is what Rabbi is saying. Whereas in the first case, he said, look, he didn't say anything, but we found it says charity on it. Maybe that was an old envelope or something. No, it had charity on it. People don't put funds into a box or an envelope that's got charity marked on it when it wasn't charity. Similarly, if they had a dream, and this is interesting, which advised that the money that their father had hidden belonged to charity, it is not taken seriously, for dreams are not relied upon to either increase or decrease. However, if a third party said so to them, he said, I had a dream, and the funds were in such a place that he could have taken them. In other words, I had a dream that your father left over money for charity, and it's it's hidden in the pantry behind the big dish, or somewhere where they would have found it. And he could have taken it. It's in a place he could have gone and taken it and given them to charity if he wanted it. If he wanted to, just his own, he could have done it. So now that he's telling them, he's believed, since he could have given them to charity, and they didn't know what it was. But if not, he's not believed. If he couldn't have gone and taken them freely, easily, then you can't believe him, even though he seems to know something you didn't know. There are stories about people that had dreams and they found things, but the most famous story on dreams, I will just repeat that now, is famous story is that a guy had a dream that there was a treasure under a certain bridge in a far-off city. It's a very vivid dream. So he saved up money and he went there, and he got to the bridge. He identified it, looked just like in his dream, and he starts looking around, and he's there's guards there, there's soldiers there guarding it, and first they're not going to let you start digging, and even if they did, then they'll take it, for themselves. So you don't know what to do. So he's walking around, he's looking. So a soldier sees him wandering around, looking suspicious. So what are you doing here? So he tries to make up a story. No, come on. He gets a little tough with him. So he breaks down. He says, well, I had this dream that that there was a treasure here under this bridge. It was buried under here, at a certain place, and it was very vivid. And I'm here to I was looking for a way to dig it up. So the soldier says, "Oh, you're ridiculous! You're such stupid. I had a dream." He says to me, "So I had a dream that there was a box of treasure buried in this little peasant's hut in this far-off village. You think I'm going to go there and do that?" Well, the guy he named was him. Was the guy that came to the bridge. So the guy says, "Oh." He runs back home and he digs where the guy told him, and there was the treasure in his house the whole time. That's the story. So, but the moral is that the treasure's right where you are. You just have to use what you got at hand. You'll find the treasure, what's around. But it's a cute way of describing it. Okay. If someone was using a box for dedicated funds and then regular funds, he had it first dedicated funds and then he used it for regular funds, one after the other, and afterwards finds money inside. So it is treated according to the last use. If he used the box simultaneously for both, the funds are treated after the majority. In other words, if he had $1,000 in there for charity and $100 of his own money, and he finds funds that he didn't realize there was still some money in there in a hidden compartment or something, so it goes after the charity. Or if it was this, then it goes after his. If they are found in a hole, whereby it could be said that they live there for a long time without being noticed, they are treated after the majority, even when the use was for one purpose after another. So whatever the major use was. And, like this sounds very weird to us, but in those days they had all kinds of, you didn't have plastic bags and disposables and so on, so on. So receptacles were kept for a long time, and if they got a hole in them, they were pushed up or patched up or something that could have been easy. They weren't discarded so quickly. So you can have situations like this. The notes on this say that the Talmudic passage on which M is based, which is I haven't read yet, which Rambam is based, is the likely source for the English phrase "give till it hurts." As I said, you keep giving till it hurts. However, the intent is quite different. When we say "give till it hurts," we're talking over there that you didn't say anything. You just keep giving. Here we're talking about what your pledge must have been. Chapter 7 has already instructed us that the range of giving falls somewhere between 1/3 of a shekel to 1/5 of income per year. Certainly, one need not give till it hurts. That's the phrase in English is used to say "give till it hurts." We're using it in the sense of in a certain circumstance where you forgot what it is. Rather, the rule stated here is founded on the laws of vows, not the laws of charity. Owing to the sacred duty to fulfill a vow, the person here is obliged to tie the donation large enough that he can afterwards say that his original intention, which he has since forgotten, has assuredly been completed. Okay, and here's the Gemara that I'm going to skip, and we're going to go on to paragraph 4. Whether one says this sela is charity, or whether one says I accept upon myself the obligation to give a sela charity, and then sets aside a sela, in either case, if he wishes to exchange the sela for another, he may do so. So you have a coin or some article that you want to donate to charity. You have something of apparently equal value, and whether you first identified it's this one that I'm giving, or you said I'm going to give a certain, I'll give a hockey glove or a set of hockey things, and then you set one aside and you change it. So you can do that. However, once the coin has reached the hand of the collector, you've given it over to the collector, then he's forbidden to exchange it. Now, if the collectors wish to smelt the funds in order to make dinners, you give them a small thing, they're going to smelt it and make it larger, which they used to do in those days. They may not do so unless there are not present any poor to whom to distribute the funds. In which case, they should smelt it for others, but not on behalf of themselves. In other words, they're going to work with it, so do it through a third party so that there's no appearance of a hanky-panky, but you can do what you feel is best for the poor. But if there's poor around, then give it to them right away. Don't start, playing around. If a benefit would accrue to the poor by reason of the funds being delayed in the hand of the collector, how would that happen? In order to encourage others to give more, if you start giving to the poor, that's all they got. So I'm out of it. Then you start destroying it, say they still need. Then that collector may lend out the charity funds for later repayment. So you look like he doesn't have. You gotta give me more. This is possible because charity funds are not like temple funds, of which no personal use may be made. Now here, we're going back to the normal. When we started, we were saying vows that are normally vows to give a sacrifice to the temple or a donation to the temple. So that's sacred funds to the temple. That gets a certain sanctity on it, and it has a different status, and it's treated a different way, and there's special instructions about that. So what he's coming to tell me here is that's not true of charity. Charity, you have to pay your commitments, but it doesn't. The fact that you said it's going to be for charity doesn't give it a special sanctity that you can't exchange it or do something else with it. Now I've kept this Shulchan Aruch in large size because I think he had something. One who pledges charity is not able to retract it unless it is requested of a sage who permits him. That's extra. So the Rambam didn't mention that. But once you pledge charity, so you can retract it unless you go to a sage. We spoke about this before, where you made a commitment, you didn't realize it's going to be too difficult, or you can't afford it, or something happened, you lost some money, and so on. So you have to go to a sage who's going to hear your case and absolve you, basically, of the commitment. However, once it has reached the hand of the treasurer, he's not able to make a request upon it. It's done. You can't retract it. Now, the next Shulchan Aruch says what we already said, so I put that in small print, but the Ramah adds, similarly, if he has made hektish, a hektish is something belonging to the temple. It's holy money. Some shadows. So he, let's say he has, I don't know, he's got a car, and he's going to get a new car. He's going to give this old car to. There are places where you can give the car to charity today, but he's going to give it to the temple. So let's say he does that. He is able to sell them before 3 valuation experts and give their worth to charity. So he made hectares. So he's already said that he considers that like charity, but he used the word hectares. So now go before 3 experts that are able to evaluate and find out what it's worth, and then you can redeem it and give that money to charity. And he continues and says, since charity is not like hektish, it is permitted to derive benefit therefrom. Nevertheless, one should not engage in financial transactions with charity funds that are prepared to distribute to the poor, except when receiving one currency for another and the like, lest some poor people approach for assistance and there will be no funds to distribute. So you always got to be ready to give somebody. There was poor people that were always hungry. I guess you can find the same today, but it's not quite the same. Today we have a different situation with welfare and so on. That requires a whole discussion, some of which may come out of reviewing these ideas, but because you have a whole society that's got a built-in charity function. It's very nice. People complain it's not enough, but it's very nice. It didn't exist in the past. But for charity funds that are not allocated for current needs, only the principal need be preserved, while the profits may be consumed, and so is the custom. So there's charity funds, and they're able to invest them. So you only have to keep the principal. The profits can be consumed. Okay. We have. I'm not going to start this. We're going to put at the beginning of the notes here our marker, and we'll go into notes there. So let me see if there's any questions or comments on what we've done so far. Not really there.
I'm good.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Let me rephrase that. I'm excellent.
Okay. He's going back to that. You got a good memory. So so just to close off, let's see if we can think of some of the details. Is there anybody in our society that's absolutely destitute? For example, I'm just playing a game here. I'm not deciding anything. But let's say you have a homeless person who lives on the street. And we have those in Toronto. I'm sure you have in your city.
Oh, they're terrible around here.
Right. But they can get welfare. They can get a social assistance, right? I don't know why they don't have it. Or maybe they do have it and they're wasting
money.
Yeah,
I spent the last year working as a neighborhood watch security at a local shelter, and you get right involved and you realize their homeless problem isn't homeless. I mean, if you gave them a home, they'd just run it down and
right. They know
ruin it. Yeah, so the problems are much deeper, and definitely drug addiction plays a huge factor. But
right, so that's so isn't that maybe like we had a case before of a rich person who has funds, he refuses to look after himself, right? So we said we don't have to concern ourselves to that. So would that apply to a guy that's not able? He won't address his addiction. We know it's very tough. I mean, I can't fix your addiction. I can help you, but I can't do it. You got to do it yourself. So do we have to? I mean, do we have to? We'd like to, but there becomes a never-ending thing, and it's an open-ended
Yeah.
problem.
Well, the whole nature of addiction is they forfeited their free will to their drugs, and
And maybe we should get a lot tougher. And maybe, like my rabbi used to say that there's the murder rate in Russia or in these totalitarian regimes are much lower because they know if they get caught, they're gonna die. There's no waiting in prison for years.
yeah, and the woke liberals out here, they really
No, it's
you
I
can't shame them, you can't say anything negative, and they basically remove the bottom from where they could bottom out and let them fall further.
Yeah. So I hear the problem, but hear the other side. That it's really a tough nut. So that's what we're dealing with. And these laws may help us decide because when you realize that they are coming from a serious
Yeah,
study.
we just had an executive of housing for a major corporation in British Columbia just had to step down after 30 years
Oh,
because it turned out that her husband was on the government board that
I read about that. Yes,
delineated the funds,
right.
and it was obviously, yeah, she was getting all her funds from her husband, and so now there's a big probe, and she just had to step down. But
Right.
sad.
Sounded like there was no hanky panky going on. She just didn't want to. I just read it quickly, but yeah, that's those are things that happen. You have to be very careful, and that's why
Wait,
you see in between the lines you can read about a lot of the strictures on the community chest collectors and how they have to handle the funds and not fool around with them and make sure they're available right away and so on. It's a tough job. Okay, that's it for today.
All right, so there you have it, folks. We will be back tomorrow with our Zoom daily at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for more Zoom daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz. Till then, have a wonderful, wonderful evening, everybody.
Okay, bye bye.